What's up, docs and docettes? Trevor Thompson, the self-appointed Looney Tunes critic, and we are watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a wonderful movie, a movie that I and my buddy Sean and so many of us consider to be the best Looney Tunes movie. But it's called Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it's based on a book called Who Censored Roger Rabbit, and I asked the author of that book why that was.
They changed the title from censored to framed because they were afraid of using censored in a title for fear that parents might think it was a dirty movie.
Right.
And I actually like framed a little better than censored. But again, the title framed came after I sat in a meeting with like 35 of the most creative people I've ever met in my life. And afterwards I thought, where were you guys when I was writing this thing on my kitchen table at 4 a.m? I would have won a Pulitzer Prize and the book would have been named Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
So that's what this commentary is going to be like. It's going to be me and my good buddy Sean McBee. Say hello, Sean.
Oh, hey, everybody.
Me, my good buddy, and also my video wrangler. We're going to be talking, and then we're going to be playing clips, and we're calling this the Animators commentary, and that's because
we're both professional animators.
Yes, of course. But seriously, I interviewed 4 animators that worked on this, including Mr. Wolf, Gary K. Wolf, the author of the book, the man who literally wrote the book on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
On Who Censored Roger Rabbit.
The man who wrote the book on Roger Rabbit is what I should have said. Let's start over. But yeah, it's going to be us talking and then playing the clips from any number of those interviews. And the interviewees in question, you guys know Gary Wolf. The animators are Colin White, Dave Spafford, now professor at USC, Tom Cito. Tom also is also a consultant in a lot of ways too. And they sadly no longer with us, Jacques Muller, who passed away shortly after I conducted his interview. So R.I.P. Jacques. But this shot here, where there's 2 things about this movie that if they didn't get right, the whole movie wouldn't have worked. And the first thing is Bob Hoskins' performance, obviously, for obvious reasons, and we'll praise him throughout this. But the other one is this shot right here, where Roger is, in his cartoon, and he walks off the set into the real world. That's essentially, if they didn't get that shot right, the whole premise, the whole everything would have been lesser.
And just looking at the set, like the care that they took with this, to make it look like what was in the cartoon, but also make it look real is amazing. And you can see the sides of the flats, like where the walls cut into.
Yeah.
So it's like a movie set, but it's like a cartoon set. Yeah. It's introducing the idea of a cartoon set. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, and it's introduced that shot right there. I mean, and it's like a lot of things in this movie. Now, it's done so well that you don't even notice it. But anyway, Hollywood in 1947. It's not random. There's a very specific reason, and Tom Cito told us what that reason is.
The reason why they picked 1947 for Roger Rabbit was that 1947, besides it being the year that they started to scrap the streetcars, also it's the last year of Hollywood cartoons that were unaffected by the UPA revolution and the beginning of the more graphic kind of look of the 50s. Because after 47, that's when people started, like I said, UPA was the renegade studio formed by a lot of ex-Disney people who wanted to get more into more modern art and get away from the old classic stuff. It's like, Ward Kimball used to joke about the Bambi Pinocchio style, and he says they look like the Campbell Soup kids. It's those round characters all the time, and they wanted something, and they wanted to get away from the endless, they like Tom and Jerry and Bugs Bunny. They called them cat chasing the rat cartoons. It's like it's all pursuit cartoons. It's like he chases him, he's chasing him, he's trying to kill him. It's like they want to do something different, So after 47, those sort of changes start to start to take over, and you have Toot Whistle Plunk and Boom, and Maurice Noble starts stylizing the Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner cartoons, and and the look of animation changes from that round classic kind of like style.
Anyway, we're going to introduce Dave Spafford, rock star extraordinaire. He animated a lot of this stuff here, and the shot that we see of Bugs in the background coming up. So tell us about that, Dave.
I also did like a pelican riding a bike.
Yeah, that's a great
crashes in the Andreas Dejan. I did that character, and there's one scene where it's like a bunch of mail or something, all flies all over the place.
Eddie's leaving.
Oh, and Bugs Bunny's just walking through.
Yeah, just in the background of the
Yes,
the train.
I did do that, and something happened with that scene, and it got out of registration. It's the one scene that drives me crazy.
Because I've always been curious as to what...
It was done as a test, but then it got put in, and then they had to track it to the camera move, and it just got weird.
And that's something you're going to notice a lot throughout this commentary, is that there's discussions about camera moves, which is a big deal for classic traditional animators. To have the background move, it's a big ordeal. So there's a lot of registration that they have to redo and stuff. And the other thing I need to point out before I play this next clip of Tom is when we say scenes, ladies and gentlemen, we're not talking about like, oh, that scene with Eddie and RK Maroon, that whole 5 minute. That's not a scene in animation. In animation, a scene is a shot. A single shot. So every once in a while, you'll hear these animators go, oh, and my scene here, my scene here. They're not talking about they animated the whole scene. It's certain individual shots. Anyway, Tom Cito is going to tell us about how they got all these other studio characters and Betty Boop and all kinds of things and stuff like that there.
It's like, I remember on Roger, it's like once they got Disney and Warner Brothers to cooperate, they had to pay for Betty Boop. I think it was like $5,000 or something like that to get the rights to Betty Boop. They paid for Elmer Fudd and stuff, but just wound up not using him. They went through a bunch of Woody Woodpecker they had to pay for. The interesting thing is that the only ones who turned them down was Bill and Joe. Hanna-Barbera. They turned down Tom and Jerry. They refused to lend us Tom and Jerry, and I think they refused to lend us Popeye. It's like King Features, and all. They also refused Coco the Clown, which is weird because we got Betty Boop, so so that's why there's that one clown that's multicolored going, I'm here. Yeah. That was originally Coco. And then they said, well, we can't use Coco, but
he sounds a lot like Pinto Colvig's Bozo.
Yeah, he does. Yes, exactly that there. Yeah, but it's interesting because there was a famous in the original script. There was a funeral scene. So RK Maroon's funeral, and the pallbearers were going to be like Popeye and Bluto and Tom and Jerry, and Foghorn Leghorn was going to give the eulogy, and Hoskins was like behind a gravestone taking photos, and this roadster pulls up, and it's Humphrey Bogart and Clark Gable, Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse all in golf attire, and Mickey's got sunglasses and goes, yeah, me and the boys were shooting the back nine at Wilson, and then we heard about RK's death. That's terrible, you can't walk the streets. And then Bugs goes, yeah, which way's to Boneyard?
But this joke, you and me love this joke.
Well,
dude.
yeah, and
this joke is so dark. Hold on, let's play it.
So what's his problem?
Toon killed his brother.
Huh? What? Oh my!
Dropped the piano on his head.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
Of course, yeah, sure. That's so dark.
And I feel like most people that joke doesn't land for most people.
I know, it's a shame.
But even as a kid, I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it really, and it's not just hilarious, but it's being true to your characters and true to the environment that you're trying to create. All right, now I apologize to Jessica Rabbit fans out there, particularly you, Maddie Rose, but this whole next segment of interviews is going to be all about how awesome Dave Spafford is and working with, Daffy Duck and getting the voices and everything like that. Because a lot of you will notice, you more diehard Looney Tunes fans will notice that Bugs and Daffy and a lot of the Looney Tunes look the way they should look in 1947. And Spafford is very, very much responsible for that. So we're going to talk about his encounters with Chuck Jones and the studio.
When I was in England and doing the duck sequence, Warner Brothers saw it and freaked out that I had done the Bob Clampett, on a couple scenes. That's Bob Clampett. We want the Chuck Jones stuff because that was their modern style. They wanted the modern Chuck Jones style because their merchandise matched it. And I'm going, this is in the 40s. I can't do that. And they said, well, then we don't want you working on it. And I went, all right, whatever. And I talked with Zemeckis, and he said, okay, look, we're just, do what you want to do, and then we'll send them stuff that looks like what they want. And so I was doing fake animation that looked like Chuck Jones, getting that approved, and then actually working on Daffy Duck in Bob Clampett style.
That's so cool to me, dude. They made animation just to shut Warner Brothers up. But we're going to talk a little more about his involvement with Daffy here. We all love the woo-woos that he does here at the end. Mel Blanc's woo-woos. But they're not Mel Blanc. You know who they are? Spafford, the effing rock star, baby. So I'm going to play here now. I'm going to let you guys hear the woo-woos, and then we're going to hear Spafford telling us about it. That's great right there. Now let's hear about how that came to be.
And by the way, I did the hoo-hoo at the end because Mel Blanc was so old, and he did all of the voice. He did all the voices, but he couldn't do the hoo-hoo, and I actually pulled a muscle in my groin doing it. It was, it was hard.
Wow.
You have to throw all the air out of your lungs, and to do that, you're pushing with muscles that you never used before.
Well, this is to your credit, sir, because for years I thought those woo-woos were reused from old cartoons.
Nope. Those are all brand new. That whole session was done in Los Angeles, and I got to do it with Mel Blanc, which was a highlight in my life because I was hard on let's record this the way they used to. Let's just do this, and then we'll pitch it up. And some of the lines were just read just slightly slower. We just had them read a little bit slightly slower than normal. And then when you pitch it up, the voice would be delivered at the proper speed, but it's higher now.
Now, the other thing is, Chuck Jones was a hero to you and me. We got to meet him together
on the phone,
but I'll take it. But he was not as helpful as he could be during the production of this, and Spafford bore the brunt of it.
When I first started on film, they brought him in to storyboard or come up with ideas for the piano duo, and I was like, oh no, let's just do this. Let's just make this up. This is going to turn into the same old crap. And I even said, I'll tell you exactly what he's going to do. He's going to have the characters sit down. They're going to take their gloves off, and the gloves will be the never-ending glove that that makes a pile on next to the piano. By the time both of them, by the time each one of them take their gloves off, it's going to be crazy. And that's exactly what he did. And I just said, I don't want to repeat anything. This is stuff that we've all seen before. So to me it was like I wanted to do something new, and so they ended up not they kind of canceled having him do storyboards and ideas and stuff, and and it was better because it had to be fresh. We were looking at it. We didn't want to just celebrate the Warner Brothers cartoons, like the most popular ones that everybody knows. We're telling a story about the idea that they sort of lived in what we consider the San Fernando Valley, you know, and just on the other side of Hollywood, like that was the weird place, you know. And so it had to be weird. The cartoon had to be weird, you know. It's Bob Clampett and Tex Avery and very few others.
Pointed. X sheet. I didn't spot that for years. Eddie's holding an X sheet, an exposure sheet for all you animators out there. An actual honest to goodness exposure sheet. Son of a bitch. By the way, Sean is still here. He's just not commenting.
I mean, I never noticed the X sheet.
No. Now this scene, I want to point this out just for my own personal reasons, but this I'm the Looney Tunes critic, but I did go to film school, and this is one of my favorite movies. But easily, this scene is my favorite scene in the whole movie, and there's no animation in it.
And why is it your favorite?
Couple of reasons. One, I'm gonna cry. I miss Bob. I do. I never knew him, but I miss him.
This is a really great shortcut for exposition.
Yeah.
Instead of having some character go, oh yes, we had so much fun together and we had this great relationship and we were all happy and stuff. He's just going through photos. That's it.
Show rather than tell. And it's everything I love about filmmaking, because he's acting his socks off and everything in front of the camera is fantasy and everything. They're doing lighting changes. There's people walking up to him, taking his jacket off, moving things around. All this stuff is going on, but it's this technical thing, but it conveys. And we were talking about the music. This music is beautiful.
I don't think there's ever been a movie with better music.
Really?
Really? Yeah.
It's good music. It's good music.
I mean, I'll take anything that John Williams has ever done up against this any day.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not, and John Williams isn't bad at all, but this,
John Williams isn't bad.
He's not bad.
I'm sure
controversial opinion, I know. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is not Mel Blanc.
He just couldn't get that vocal range at that point.
But here's the funny thing. Mel did record Sam, and they were very nice to him and said, thank you, we'll see, we'll do what we can with this. And then they went to Joe Alasky, and then Mel went to the premiere, heard this, and said, wow, they did a great job with what I gave them. That's how good Joe Alasky is.
That's how old Mel Blanc was.
Oh, stop it. But that is how good Joe was at being a Mel Blanc voice print. Even Mel was fooled. By the way, look at all the ties.
Yeah, I love his super short tie.
Yeah, and it's not super short too. I'll tell you a little story about that later on, because it involves my good buddy Matty Rose. Yeah, the ties in this movie I didn't notice until just a few years ago.
Wait, when you were 10, you weweren't paying attention to neckties?
Can you believe it? I know. And that's weird, because when I was 10, everyone was like, they called me the necktie kid.
Yeah, I mean, you should have seen him. He wore cardigans and neckties.
I did, actually, because I was a Mr. Rogers freak. But anyway, the Weasels are here, and so Colin White is going to tell us about his work on the Weasels. You said you worked on the Weasels. I've been trying to get somebody to officially confirm my theory on this. I believe, and this is just my theory, but I believe that the Weasels are actually reinterpretations of the Weasels from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
That's right, they are.
Thank
you. They were definitely. They were kind of interesting, because Dick's way of working.
Dick Williams.
There weren't really model sheets. There was one model sheet of the Weasels, just one kind of master model sheet in colour. And they were all, they were based on the Winnie the Willow ones, but they were, because of the clothing and stuff, they didn't look particularly like them. But Dick's way of working, kind of time consuming, so you get it, you do a scene, and then he would take the scene and draw over the top of it basically and clean it up for you, putting it on model. So rather than do model sheets that we could copy, there was this one sort of basically set of profile with no sense of construction that then eventually as you pick it up you think, oh yeah, that's what they look like, and then you didn't need to go over them. But it's quite a time consuming way of doing it.
Now Sean and I are we're 40 years of age. and we were age appropriate when this movie came out. And yet, I don't think you or I, and we're alone in this generation, were traumatized by this scene of the dip. But so many people, I remember being like, "Oh, that scene with the little boot and the dip." I'm like, really? It's a tune. You met a tune, by the way, that you met 30 seconds before it died.
Look, children have just historically been
idiots,
too attached to shoes.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. That's the problem. So many kids.
I mean, at that point, I was like, it's not a Reebok. Who cares?
That's true. Yeah. So Bob Hoskins as Eddie Valiant. Well,
look at those cartoony handcuffs, by the way.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're supposed to be tune cuffs.
You know what? I wouldn't put it past this movie. In fact, it would be a good detail. But
given his history.
Right. But we are gonna play a clip from Gary now, and we're gonna hear about. He loves Bob Hoskins. We all love Bob Hoskins, but he was not always into the idea.
Bob was just one of the greatest guys I've ever met in my life. He was such a talented actor, but not a movie star. He had no ego. He was just a wonderful guy, and I resisted using Bob Hoskins as Eddie Valiant because, for God's sake, he's British. This is the prototypical American private eye. How's a British guy going to do it? But when he started his audition, he was the only one that really made us believe the rabbit was real. And now that he's gone, he will forever after be my Eddie Valiant. I will always write Eddie Valiant and think of Bob Hoskins.
Yeah. I'm not crying. Shut up.
Yeah, I am.
I totally am. I really am.
I'll tell you my only regret about the movie. I only have one, and my only regret is that Bob Hoskins did such a phenomenal job of acting in that movie that he made it look so easy.
Yeah.
That he didn't even get nominated for an Academy Award for what I still believe was the greatest single job of acting ever done by any actor on film.
Well, anyway, we're going to go back to Colin White, who has a very interesting story about this scene with the weasels, because it was almost completely cut, and the animators fought to keep it in the movie.
I got weasels. I did lots of weasel stuff when they break into Valiant's office. Not the good stuff that Andreas did, but they're searching it. But breaking in, a lot of menacing Valiant. We get handgun stuff. The weasel with the flick knife cutting the ropes. They cut the whole. You probably know all this anyway, but they cut that whole weasel sequence.
Yeah.
The whole thing, and they've done it. It's in paint and trace and everything. And Bob Zemeckis had a meeting. He said, "We're going to cut that. It's slowing down the film. We've got this other alternate thing where they break in and then they look and the windows open and he's gone."
Yeah.
And but it was animated. They were doing massive overtime, big team, and it was all done. It looked fantastic. Yeah. And because we're going to cut it. And the real reason I heard was because ILM cost so much to composite it, but they would save a lot of money by not compositing it, even though it was all paint and trace and everything. And so we had a sort of rebellion. We all said, no, you can't do it. Because it's the only time you really get to see the weasels. I mean, they're very incidental characters mostly. That's the one sequence where they actually interact with people. They do stuff, you see them, you meet them, you get to know them a bit. A really good weasel sequence. And they were going to cut it so that the weasels burst in, and then it would like cut to the window open. They'd just gone out the window, and it was to save costs. But it was such a good sequence, and the animator basically had a kind of, he said, no, you can't, and argued with him.
Wow.
And he it, so that was pretty good of him.
That was, it's good that they stood up, because you're right, it's one of the best scenes in the movie.
It is, and it's, as I say, otherwise the weasels are very peripheral. They appear in sort of wide shots, waving guns around, but you don't even get to see or know them, and that's the one sequence you do. And I thought that was interesting that Bob backed down and did actually restore it.
And yeah, that was it, where we saw him with the handcuff. And you'll see it too in this upcoming sequence here with him and the handcuff and everything. Isn't this Kenny Baker?
No.
No, who's that?
I don't think it is.
This scene started a term that ILM uses to this day called bumping the lamp. And that's any time where you have the CGI or whatever animated character is in an environment where the light is constantly moving and you don't always know where this light source is. And that came from this because of the nightmare of trying to figure out where that light was in every given time.
And what upsets me is that even if they did a movie like this now, and even if it was traditional animation, that all the ancillary stuff, like the handcuff, would all be CGI.
Yeah, and in fact, Zemeckis has said as much, about doing a sequel, that he would, he would make it traditional, but he would definitely want like the guns and the weasel's hands and stuff to be CG, and it's like, it's not really a craft then anymore, is it?
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is a shame.
Because this is all so perfect and beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. And now we're getting to the one bad piece of animation in the entire movie. The one piece of animation that was not animated for the movie. It was recompositing, and that's this the shot of Jessica's silhouette here on the door. That's actually, I think, from the Ink and Paint Club, or when she's walking away.
I always did notice how choppy
it is. Yeah,
like it looks like stop motion. Like they stop motioned a shadow.
Yeah. Yeah. She's definitely a pawn, because you could definitely play her.
I'm just going to let that one fall there.
All right, buddy. No help from Sean, my great improv partner. But he's just wearing that awesome tie of his, by the way. Just that awesome tie. Keep your eyes open for the ties, ladies and gentlemen, because
he's wearing a sweater too.
It's for sure. It's a see-through sweater, but goddamn, is he a hairy man? They talk in the actual movie's commentary about ILM having to get around the hair on his back and make sure that she doesn't walk too close to him, because then they don't have to crop out all that hair. We talked over her line, but we all know that line. I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way. But this is the part I was talking about with Gary, where I was talking about the things that he really should get more credit for having created. When Toons and humans fuck, it's called patty cake. That's
yeah.
They don't ever credit you with that. I don't know if you necessarily want to be credited with that, but it is from the book. It's in the book.
Wait a minute. So we're back to the author is ignorant. Was that in the book?
Yeah, it's a patty cake is in the book. It's when humans.
Well, okay then.
In the book, whenever a Toon and a human has intercourse, it's called patty cake. That's in your book.
I gotta revise my.
Another thing maybe you should call your lawyer on this too, because Baby Herman's design, the way he's described in the book, is verbatim the way Richard Williams drew him. Right down to the color of the blonde hair with the bow and the blue eyes and the one or two teeth and the cigar. You basically you designed him for Richard Williams, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And probably the biggest one that you deserve credit for is that a lot of times people, they grew up with it that are my age and a little bit younger. We kind of see this civil rights and segregation satire in the movie.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
And it's definitely there in the book.
Of all the things you've talked about, they all went right over my head, but that one, for sure. That was in the original.
Yep.
That was something that Bob Zemeckis really caught, and we discussed that. And that is something that was in the movie too. The Toons are second-class citizens.
Yeah.
And they're discriminated against. It's in the book and it's in the movie. Sure.
There's for the audience that maybe hasn't read the book, Toons helped build the railroad. There's slander towards them, and also there's posted signs that say "We don't serve Toons here." Jessica suppresses her speech balloons, much like how some African American jazz musicians would straighten their hair to appear more white. And in the movie, of course, they don't do that kind of stuff, but you do see little
hints of it. There's a line when the weasels are coming in, and Roger's, pleading Eddie to help him. He goes, there's no justice for Toons anymore.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like when you think about it, there's little hints of it all throughout the movie. So, I mean, I think that's, if anything you deserve credit for that is in the movie, that's in the book, it's that stuff. It's the civil rights stuff.
Well, I appreciate that, and you have read that book probably closer than anybody, including my mother.
So,
well, real quick, I want to point out another thing to this whole civil rights thing is the Ink and Paint Club is a Jim Crow club.
Right. Yeah.
It's the Toon Review, strictly humans only.
Yep. And speaking of preaching, Roger is literally on a soapbox when he makes this point.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, but one of the most amazing things in this, again, Hoskins should have gotten an Oscar. He was pacing angrily, and he was looking at Roger, pacing, and then found the exact same eye line as before. That is stupid hard to do. We're quickly approaching one of Jacques Muller's big scenes. A couple of his big scenes in this scene. He does a lot of the stuff with Roger in Doom's hand here, over the dip, and he didn't talk too much about the scene itself, but I did want him to talk about the long hours working together and also the lessons that he learned on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
We were spending more time together than we were spending alone at home. We were working long hours, way after 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. We were working into the early hours of the morning, past midnight. And we worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7, just to meet the deadline. So, of course, it creates bonds, I mean, we were really, all of us, completely into this because we knew we were going to make history. So we were all fully invested into this thing. We totally wanted this thing to hit the mark, the bullseye, which it did, beyond our expectations, actually.
What lessons that you learned specifically on Roger Rabbit have you taken with you on every project since?
Well, I would say the big lesson is not compare yourself to others. It's pointless if I start trying to compare myself with Milko or with Eric Goldberg or Glenn Keane or Andreas or Richard Williams. I mean, we all have the potential to shine in our own ways. And it's fantastic that in the Disney film, the Disney classic, for instance, you had the 9 old men who did major parts of the features, and yet it's seamless. Unless you really have a keen eye or you know exactly the breakdown of scenes, who did what, it is very hard to tell. And to me, that's the beauty of it. It felt so just right on the money,
Was Roger the first project you worked on where you had to fit the character to the movement of the background?
Yes, I guess it was. I mean, I've worked on stuff before where you live action and animation fit together, and it's sort of rotoscope. Basically, it was kind of traced off a screen, and you did it that way. But this, and it's actually interesting because Zemeckis keeps his camera moving. You don't notice it. But you go Back to the Future. What looked like helltop, as you just drift. They drift up, they drift sideways, they drift down, and it's not perceptible. It looks like a locked shot, but in fact it breathes, it makes the film breathe. And he did that with Roger Rabbit. So in a live action animation combination, you'd always certainly lock everything. But in this case, so you get fooled over and over again. You get to see, oh yeah, okay, it's got the weasels threatening Valiant through a hole in the wall, okay, and you trace off the bit with the wall and where you went reference, and the guns the weasels were holding, whatever, and then you'd animate it all, and then when you said, oh, hold on, and you put the last photo down, it was about a quarter of an inch off, it drifted quarter of an inch across the screen, so you then had to kind of repeg everything to make it match, and that was in almost everything. And so that made it slightly more difficult. You had to kind of make sure that you match the camera moves, and that's obvious. When you've got a really obvious camera move, that's okay. When you've got ones you don't notice, you just think are held shots, right, and then you get out, he does breathe life into it.
It's got to be super hard for an animator to figure out where Roger is.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how they would have done that.
Carefully.
I mean,
very carefully.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like hearing that and watching that scene, and just having it push in so slowly, and Roger staying there, like Though I don't really like how he looks against the screen here.
Well, why? Because you can.
It looks
see
badly composited.
Yeah, the matte is kind of bad on that, but it's the.
Well,
80s.
actually, the first time, but then when they cut back to it, it seemed fine.
Okay, I think that's one of the very few downsides to a format like Blu-ray, where they clean it up so well that things that they didn't think you would see back then because of normal wear and tear and that kind of thing, you now do see.
Eat a dick, technology.
I was doing a commentary for Robin Hood Daffy yesterday, and the little guy on the on the horse, the prince that Daffy's following. You could see this. It was like a Blu-ray transfer of the restoration. You could see his physical cell hopping with him because it was two different cells because of the horse was on a separate cell.
So we discussed this on the phone recently. In that scene, RK said that he had loved tunes his entire life and he wanted to see them destroyed.
Right.
So that got me to thinking. The actor at that point, I think, was 70 years old. And if you consider that RK Maroon was the same age as the actor playing him, that puts him at 70 as well, which means that he would have been born in, 1877.
Right.
So he would have been 30 before the first cartoon came out.
Animated cartoon. Maybe he was like a...
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that brings up questions. Maybe tunes evolved. Maybe they were previously like the ones from the book.
Maybe. Yeah, like the newspaper comics.
Or perhaps they were always...
Yosemite Sam! Sorry.
Perhaps they were always around as tunes, but we didn't have the technology to film them, so we just photographed them into comic strips.
Yeah, RK was played by a very talented, like a lot of actors in this movie, British character actor, in this case, Alan Tilvern. And if you ever take a moment to look at his reel, very non-RK Maroon-like characters.
Can we also point out this tunnel?
Yeah, I love
the tunnel to Toontown is the tunnel where Marty tries to grab the sports almanac from Biff in Back to the Future Part 2.
But he can't because we have it in this room now.
Yeah, it's right. I don't know if we can see that in the shot of the video that we're taking right now. Hi, video.
Hi, video. Real quick, I want to mention Lena Hyena because, well, just look at her.
Wait, is it Lena Hyena?
Lena.
I always thought it was Nina.
It's Lena Hyena. And that is, I wanted to point this out, that is June Foray doing the voice.
Amazing.
At 71, that high energy, over the top, Clampett-esque character. Man! Like I can't even get that high. This is Mark Kausler, one of the only times a Looney Tunes character was animated by someone other than Spafford in this movie. Well, we're just going to listen to what Spafford has to say about this scene with Mickey and Bugs.
That scene was the most complicated thing ever. You've got Bob Hoskins looking back and forth, hitting eyesight with characters that aren't there yet. And so they off to either side of the frame were these guys holding sticks, saying, okay, Bugs is sort of being affected by the wind. He's kind of going up and down, you're slowing in, slowing out, and you're just sort of moving, bobbing up and down. But then Bob Hoskins was also moving sideways. They did some camera thing, and so you had to pretend like you were part of that camera move. And you had to connect with the eyesight. And also, too, I had just been reprimanded by Peter Schneider, who was in charge of Disney at the time, for moving Daffy Duck around too much. And so he kind of reprimanded me, like, don't move Bugs Bunny around like you did Daffy Duck, all over the place. He was just angry at me, and so I said, okay, I won't have him move around at all. And so that's why when you see Bugs, he's laying down, looks like he's laying down on a couch, and it's just the hand resting under his chin, holding his chin up, that's sort of moving, and his ears.
Yeah, his ears are dancing.
I just went the opposite direction, and I went, okay, yeah, you think you're going to tell me what to do?
But this scene coming up, by the way, is a very memorable one if you're a precocious young lad. Jessica is not wearing panties, and we find that out firsthand. And for the record, for all you prudes out there...
Because she's a whore.
Because she's a whore, yes. Right there. Now, obviously, they animated it out, but they had to animate it out because it was actually there.
It was recently revealed to me that, let's just cut to the chase, that you are the gentleman responsible for probably one of the most paused moments in animation history. Would you care to tell us about Jessica's big scene?
This is Colin White.
Well, it's interesting because I had this scene where she's thrown out of the car and she's spinning around. There's one or two shots with her legs out spinning, and there was no model sheet, obviously, for that particular pose. And I thought it was funny, and I thought it's a work of a moment. No one's going to notice it. Or I thought when you get to checking, they'll rub it off, And it ended up in a film. I thought, well, no one will notice anyway. And they didn't. It's only when that Laserdisc came out that some poor freeze-framed it and could see it. You can't see it. I got the line test, the original line test. You can't see anything on that. The quality is so poor, you can't see anything. And I did have the drawings. I don't know what happened to those. It's worth a fortune now.
Yeah.
I remember at the time it was brilliant because, as I say, it's a moment's work. No one noticed it. And on the film, we had a thing called a route sheet, which was like along the whole wall was the entire film in production, production with state animation, rough animation in between, and clean up, whatever. And there was a little provision for a storyboard panel. You sketched in what you were doing, and I sketched her in, with full detail. And so they can't say they weren't walled. It was on the wall for ages. And then someone rubbed it off. I think one of the ladies probably got upset about it and rubbed it off. So I was surprised it got in there, but I was quite pleased, obviously. And then I was in America when it hit the fan, and they were making jokes on the Oscars. Whoopi Goldberg made a joke about it. Entertainment Tonight was doing articles about it, and I felt like the Scarlet Pimpernel, where everyone was talking about this thing, and I was the only person in the entire world who actually knew who really did it. It was me, and it was quite fun. It was quite fun to kind of, see all this commotion, people speculating, oh no, it was a patent trace error, and I remember watching, I think, Entertainment Tonight, but they got an animator on, and they kind of presented them as though who's the bloke who'd done it. I thought, this will be interesting.
Did you see that in the news recently, there was, Zemeckis said that there's a really good script for Roger Rabbit, and Roger Rabbit sequel, but it'll never get made. For basically the same reason that Tom was saying right now. I love this line.
I wasn't worried. Were you?
Most of this stuff is Jacques, by the way, with them on the rope, which well, you know what? Maybe I'll just play this. But I pointed that out to him. I was like, have you noticed that none of your scenes in Roger Rabbit, the characters their feet never touch the ground? It's an odd distinction.
Weird.
Yeah.
None of the characters in your scenes feet ever touch the ground.
Right.
And can you just explain to maybe the unenlightened who don't animate and don't think and don't draw, just how hard it is to do a scene where Roger and Jessica, like, they're hanging from this hook, and they don't, their center of gravity is completely off, but they have to do this thing where they're avoiding this little spigot of water, and it has to be believable that they're somehow inching away from something, but they're not.
Right. Well, I always love doing dialogue scenes, and in the case of Roger and Jessica, it would be absolutely necessary when you tackle a new scene to be absolutely clear whether it's going to be a Roger scene, a Jessica scene, or a bit of both. So as to how the play down the character that wasn't delivering a piece of dialogue, you would always favor the guy or the character who had something to say according to the excitement or the intonation of the voice, and also you had to fit in a slot, because you would always have to go back for reference to the animator who had animated the scene before you, or possibly if it was still being done, you would go to his desk or her desk and talk to them, and you would try to get a copy of the last drawing of their scene so that you would hook up with them.
It's actually kind of painful for me to hear Jacques, because we lost him not too long after we conducted the interview. So Jacques did the covers of 2 of Gary's Roger Rabbit books, novels, I should say. Is really what they are. He designed. I think I don't remember, but he may have designed the one for Gary's next book. Speaking of Gary, he has a really great story about this scene coming up here in the cell, and it's just a really beautiful story, and also a cell that Jacques autographed. So here's that story now.
Wonderful guy. He did the scene where Roger and Jessica are hanging from the rope.
Yep.
And that is the animation cell that Disney gave me autographed.
Oh, really?
It's autographed by Kathleen Turner, by Bob Zemeckis, Dick Williams, Bob Hoskins autographed it, and Charlie Fleischer autographed it, and Steve Spielberg autographed it. And that was what brought me together with Jacques. But the really weird, freaky thing, I have it hanging on my wall, and the day that Bob Hoskins died, I looked at it, and honest to God, his autograph had disappeared. It was gone. You cannot even see it. It was gone.
Shut the fuck up.
I looked at it, and I said, this can't be. And I looked, and I looked, and I looked, and it was. It is gone. I looked at earlier pictures I had taken of it. It's there, bigger than life. The day he died, it vanished.
Wow.
So, I'm hoping the rest of them hold on before I sell it on eBay. So,
thank you, Tom Cito of Professor of Animation at USC, Dave Spafford, and Colin White. I don't know if Colin is still animating. He may have already retired. Rest in peace, Jacques Muller, and mad kudos to the man who wrote the book on Roger Rabbit, Gary K. Wolf.
GaryWolf.com.
If you want to order his books, which I highly recommend. And we made it, Sean.